P-22 was the most famous wild animal in America. He lived in the Hollywood Hills for a decade. Photographed beneath the sign, tracked by researchers, the city loved him. Los Angeles named a day after him. Yet, in December 2022, wildlife officials captured him and made the decision to end his life. Because his body had been quietly destroyed from the inside out by something so ordinary, you probably restocked it last month without thinking twice. California has between 50 and 100 mountain lions left. Los Angeles holds maybe 15 of them. Apex predators, ecologically irreplaceable, living invisibly inside the margins of one of the most densely populated cities on Earth. And they are dying. Not from poachers, not from habitat loss in the way you're picturing, not from each other. They're dying from something under your kitchen sink right now.
Rat poison. Rat poison was designed to kill rodents. Mountain lions don't eat rodents. So how does it end up inside them? Anticoagulant rodenticides don't stay in the rat that eats them. The rat dies slowly, blood unable to clot. And in that weakened state, it becomes easy prey. A coyote eats the rat. A bobcat eats the coyote. A mountain lion eats the bobcat. Each step up the food chain, the poison concentrates. By the time it reaches an apex predator that has never touched a bait station in its life, the dose can be lethal. This is called secondary poisoning, and it was never supposed to reach this far. What makes it worse? The compounds themselves. Second-generation anticoagulants like brodifacium and bromadiolone were engineered to be more persistent than earlier versions. They bind to fat tissue. They stay for weeks, sometimes months. A mountain lion doesn't need to eat one poison animal. It just needs to eat, which it does constantly, and every meal compounds the exposure. From the outside, a poisoned mountain lion looks completely fine. The damage is invisible. Anticoagulants block the biological process that allows blood to clot. Capillaries throughout the body begin leaking. The lion bleeds into its own lungs, into its chest cavity, around its organs. No visible wound, just slow internal hemorrhaging over days. Lethargic, struggling to hunt, in a landscape already cut apart by highways, a lion that can't hunt consistently doesn't last long. P-22 tested positive for 4 separate anticoagulant compounds. Not one, 4. When they euthanized him, they found mange and eye injury and internal damage consistent with years of chronic exposure. He didn't die clean, and the concrete keeping him trapped made sure the poison had nowhere to go but deeper into his system.
Concrete. Los Angeles is essentially Alcatraz for mountain lions now. Not by design. No one drew a map and said the mountain lions stay here. But the freeways, the flood channels, the relentless sprawl pressing outward in every direction, they produce the same result. A mountain lion born inside the Santa Monica Mountains today will almost certainly die inside them. Not because the habitat is gone, because everything surrounding it has been paved. Male mountain lions need territories of 150 square miles or more. The Santa Monica Mountains offer roughly 275 square miles. Enough, but only if the animals can move. Movement is how they find unrelated mates. It's how young males disperse when dominant adults drive them out. It's how genetic diversity flows in and out of a population. Remove movement, and you haven't just inconvenienced the lions. You've turned a habitat into an island. And islands do predictable, ugly things to the species trapped on them. The 101 freeway is the primary wall, 10 lanes of continuous high-speed traffic cutting directly across the only corridor connecting the Santa Monica Mountains to wildlands north. Mountain lions can physically cross it. They have, rarely, but it kills them often enough that most don't try. The inbreeding that followed is measurable. One lion, P12, was confirmed to have bred with his own daughter. Not behavioral abnormality, no other options within reach. A study published in the Proceedings of the Royal Society found that without intervention, this population faces local extinction within 50 years. The concrete didn't intend to do this. It did it anyway. And we've known long enough that intent stopped being a meaningful excuse. Evolution built mountain lions to move across hundreds of miles of connected landscape. We fragmented it, and then the isolation started doing something the poison alone never could.
Fragmentation and isolation aren't separate problems. Fragmentation is the mechanism that makes both of them fatal. A healthy, connected population can absorb losses. An animal dies, another moves in from adjacent territory. Genetic diversity holds, the population continues. This is how large carnivores have survived human encroachment for decades across dozens of landscapes worldwide. Fragmentation removes that buffer entirely. Every loss becomes unrecoverable.
Here's the paradox. The Santa Monica Mountains are not degraded habitat. There are deer, there is cover, there is water. By every conventional metric, it should be working. The habitat is fine. The isolation is the diagnosis. This isn't the wildlife crisis most people picture. Forests cleared, wetlands drained, the physical space simply ceasing to exist. That happens, it matters, but it isn't what's killing these lions. Their habitat exists. They just can't get out of it, and nothing can get in.
A fragment of good habitat surrounded by impassable terrain functions biologically almost identically to no habitat at all. The poison is solvable. The concrete has a partial fix. The largest wildlife crossing in the world is currently under construction over the 101. But fragmentation as a condition, the accumulated result of a century of development made without wildlife connectivity in mind, cannot be undone on any timeline that helps the animals alive right now. You can't unbuild Los Angeles. The crossing helps. It's necessary. It's just not sufficient to reverse what isolation has already done, quietly, across generations, to this population's genetics. And when genetics deteriorate long enough, something else kicks in. Something with a name that says exactly what it is.
The extinction loop? The extinction vortex or loop isn't a metaphor. It's a clinical term, and the Santa Monica Mountains population is inside one. Here's how it works. A small, isolated population starts losing individuals to poison, to vehicle strikes, to the ordinary cost of living in a hostile landscape. The population shrinks. Fewer individuals means fewer potential mates. Inbreeding becomes unavoidable. Inbreeding reduces genetic diversity. Weaker immune systems, lower reproductive success, offspring less equipped to survive than their parents were. Population shrinks further. Now it's small enough that a single catastrophic event, a wildfire, a disease outbreak, one bad prey year can gut it. Each shock shrinks the pool. The smaller it gets, the faster it spins. This isn't theoretical. The indicators are already present and measurable. P12 sired offspring with his own daughter. Not behavioral pathology. The landscape made that choice for him. The pool of available mates had shrunk to the point where the alternative to inbreeding was no breeding at all.
The Florida panther is where this road leads without intervention. By the 1990s, the population had collapsed to 20 or 30 individuals. Males were developing physical defects at rates threatening reproductive viability entirely. Heart defects, immune dysfunction. The genetic consequences of isolation had compounded until the animal was visibly falling apart. In 1995, wildlife managers introduced 8 female mountain lions from Texas. It worked. The panther stabilized. The Santa Monica Mountains population is on a trajectory that rhymes with the Florida panther's worst years, except it sits inside the second largest urban area in the United States. The options are narrower. The margin for error is smaller. The vortex doesn't announce itself. It shows up in the data first. Inbreeding coefficients, cub survival rates, genetic sequencing of animals that look perfectly healthy until you look closer. By the time it's visible, it's been running for years. In the Santa Monica Mountains, it has been running for years. One lion lived inside all of this longer than any of them should have, and his story is what made this crisis impossible to ignore.
You see, sometime around 2012, a young male mountain lion crossed 2 of the busiest freeways in Los Angeles, the 405 and the 101, and survived. He was dispersing from his birth territory, doing exactly what young male mountain lions are supposed to do. He made it across, found Griffith Park, and stayed. Not because Griffith Park was adequate. At 4,300 acres, it's a fraction of what a male lion needs. He stayed because the same freeways he'd crossed to get in made getting out a near certain death sentence. He lived there for a decade. He became famous, photographed beneath the Hollywood sign, tracked by GPS collars, celebrated by a city of 10 million people who had no idea they were watching an animal slowly run out of options. When they captured him in late 2022, his body told the whole story. Mange, an eye injury likely from a vehicle strike, internal damage consistent with years of rodenticide exposure. He was 11 or 12 years old, elderly for a wild mountain lion, and he had accumulated the full weight of everything this crisis produces. The decision was made to euthanize him. P22 didn't die from one thing. He died from all of it, simultaneously. Poison, isolation, a decade inside a fragment too small to sustain him, surrounded by 10 million people who loved him, and a landscape that gave him no way out.
Evolution built him to roam hundreds of miles. Los Angeles gave him Alcatraz. He made it work for as long as anything could have.
So what can you do? The Wallace-Annenberg Wildlife Crossing is under construction right now. A 210-foot bridge over 10 lanes of the 101 freeway, landscaped with native vegetation designed to be invisible to the animals using it. When complete, the largest wildlife crossing in the world. It won't fix everything, but it addresses the single most critical pinch point in this landscape. And it exists because enough people decided the cost of building it was lower than the cost of losing what's left. Rodenticide reform is moving too. California's AB 1788 restricted second-generation anticoagulants statewide. Enforcement is uneven, but the framework now exists in a way it didn't 5 years ago. Here's what you can do today. Stop using second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides. Brodifacum, bromadiolone, difethiolone, they're the ones climbing the food chain. Alternatives exist. Snap traps work. First-generation rodenticides break down faster and accumulate less. The thing under your kitchen sink the title of this video was about, it's a real product. Choosing a different one is a real action. You can also support the National Wildlife Federation's Wildlife Crossing Campaign, the organization that helped fund the Annenberg Crossing and continues pushing for connectivity infrastructure across fragmented landscapes nationwide. The mountain lions of the Santa Monica Mountains are not gone. The population is small, stressed, genetically compromised, but the intervention is real, it's funded, and it's being built. P22 didn't make it to see the crossing finished. The lions that come after him might. And here at Not Your Pets, where we bridge the gap between what you think you know about animals, man, environment, and survival, and what actually is, that's exactly the kind of story we exist to tell. Subscribe now. New videos twice a week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.